Hello, everybody. How are you doing today? I tell you, I am so honored and delighted to have you with me once again and glad to be with you once again, too. And I thank you so very much. And I would like to welcome all of you to another episode of TJ's Topics. That's right. And of course, I am TJ, and it is a pleasure to be with you again. I consider it a joy, an honor, and a privilege to be able to come into your presence on any given occasion. And I am so excited about today's topic because, as we're going further into this spring season, I think we're going to begin to realize how significant it is, that we not become so attached to certain people with whom we cross paths in life because everyone is not meant to be a part of our life forever. So with that being said, people are seasonal. That is today's topic. People are seasonal. Seasonal. Just like the seasons have changed. We were just in winter a few weeks ago and it was cold as all get out. Now we are in the season of spring, and how lovely of a season it is. And as of this weekend, we are getting ready to celebrate Easter, or for those of you who want to use the phrase Resurrection Sunday. But at any rate, we're right here. And we're in a new season. And seasons change, of course. You all know that. Well, seasons change in each and every one of our lives, just like they change throughout the year. Within a few months from now, the seasons will change again. We'll be going into the summer and it will be boiling hot outside. And so it is with the seasons of our lives. People come and people go. Everyone is not meant to be a part of our life forever. They said that people are coming to your life for a reason. They are coming to your life for a season. And then there are those who may come into your life and they do happen to be there forever or for a lifetime. So 3 categories of people, the different types. Now, of course, there are several categories of people who come into our lives for a reason and for a season. And they are, number 1, family members. They consist of parents and grandparents, siblings, aunts and uncles, cousins, you name it, relatives. They come into our lives for a season. They have an important reason for being there. And little do most people realize they're only there for a little while, and then once their time is up, they'll go on to a higher dimension. Number 2, friends and associates. And we've had many friends over the years, from childhood all the way up to this present moment as adults. People who have come and gone. I tell you, and you hate to see some of them go, but once their part in the story of your life has ran its course, there's really no other reason for them to be there. Therefore, they move on. However, they move on. Number 3, neighbors. Maybe somebody who lives next door to you, across the street, down the street, around the corner, or perhaps across town. Your neighbors, some of them may be around for a good while, others not as long. But still, they play an important role in your life for a particular time in your life, for a season. Number 4, co-workers and supervisors. And I can tell you about that. I mean, I have had many co-workers over the years and many supervisors. I'm telling you, some were good and some not so good. But I tell you, I have dealt with many people on these jobs over the years. Oh Lord, and believe me, it has not always been easy. But I learned to be patient and tried my best to get along with them to the best of my ability. And I'm sure you have too. But they're only there for a season. So remember that. Number 5, classmates, ranging from preschool through college. People you go to school with, have fun with, and play games with, get in trouble with. That may be a lot of fun and you may have a good time in the process, but it's only going to last for so long. And then eventually that'll come to an end, usually at the point of graduation, or in some cases when either you or those students transfer to another school, or they may move out of state or something. Then those friendships usually come to an end. Number 6, and now this is a big one right here. Enemies and haters. We just lump them all together because your enemies are typically your haters and your haters are typically your enemies. They're one and the same. And we all have had that category of people to come into our lives for a reason and for a season. And they teach us valuable lessons that we might not have otherwise learned had they not been a part of our life. So, and finally, number 7, soulmates or romantic partners. Now, sometimes people will meet someone that they hope to spend the rest of their life with. They want to get married and start a family, and stuff like that. Have a nice home and be able to enjoy good times together, vacations and things like that. But all the time, that's not the case. Sometimes you bump into somebody that you think you're going to spend the rest of your life with, and you regret even giving them your phone number. You don't need to fool with them because they're no good. But they taught you a lesson though. So they came into your life for a reason and for a season, because once that lesson has been learned, then they move on. And that's how we need to learn to do too. Learn how to move on and quit trying to hold on to these people because they're not meant to be there forever. Now, just the other day, I had a thought, and I thought about 3 types of friends that I've had over the years that have left my life, since I've been an adult. One was a job trainee, well, he trained me to take his place on the job that he had. And from there, we became church members. We were both in church together for a while, and we became best friends. And he was a good friend. We met in 2006. And then from 2006 to 2015, that was the extent of our friendship. Friendship lasted for 9 years, and then it came to a close. The next door neighbor that I had at one time, and then after he moved out his apartment beside me, moved down the street, we still were good friends. And I went to visit from time to time and everything, called him on the phone and text and whatnot. And we were also friends for 9 years, from 2011 to 2020, when our relationship just suddenly dissolved. And finally, a social media friend that I had and a good confidant who lived in New York. And we were best friends from 2016 all the way up to 2025. And then he got off of social media and we lost contact. So people don't come into our lives to stay forever. Some people come just to show us things about ourselves, teach us important lessons, help us to gain a greater awareness of things, and then they move on. That's the way life goes. And so that's the way people go too. So once again, people are seasonal. And I hope that you will learn that if you haven't already. So with that being said, I would like to thank you very much for tuning in to this episode of TJ's Topics. I really appreciate it. And please feel free to join me again next time. And ain't no telling what we'll be discussing then. And before I go, I just want to say Happy Easter to everybody. And I hope you have a real good time. This is Taryn Jerome Harris, reminding you that every round goes higher and higher. I'll talk to you later. Bye-bye.